Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster baseplate kit with removable arms on our 2019 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. So there's going to be a total of 5 main components needed to flat tow your Jeep down the road safely. The first one's going to be your baseplate. That baseplate is going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. That tow bar is going to be your second component. This is going to be the physical link that does most of the work. It's going to actually pull your Jeep behind the motorhome. So you'll hook that up here at the front of your Jeep, and the other end will go to the back of your motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables. And these are there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep your Jeep connected to your motorhome. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring. And the wiring is going to transfer the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Jeep, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least is the braking system. And what the braking system is going to do is apply the brakes in your Jeep whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome. And that's just going to help bring you to a more predictable and safe stop. So this is what the base plate is going to look like whenever you're just cruising around town, whenever you're not using it to flat tow your Jeep behind your motorhome. And this is actually one of the more hidden ones. So each arm is going to be kind of tucked back a little bit and not completely visible. But on the same note too, what you can see, I actually like. These Jeeps really do show off accessories well. And so really not a big deal to me. I don't think it'd be a big deal to a lot of Jeep owners. With that being said though, even though it does sit back a little bit and is somewhat hidden, it's still going to be really easy to get to and use whenever you are ready to flat tow. And I say it's going to be easy to use because the base plate has these removable arms, which are really convenient. They more or less just go right into place. So really shouldn't give you a whole lot of issues. The way that they work is you place them in and then rotate them about a quarter of a turn, and they're going to lock into place. And that's going to give you an attachment there so you can hook up your tow bar. The other side has the same exact style of removable arm, so you'd simply just repeat that process over there to get that one hooked up as well. So this is what your setup is going to look like once you do have it all hooked up. Really easy to get to, and everything is straightforward. Now the great thing about this baseplate kit is it's going to be super easy to hook up and disconnect. So just to kind of give you an example on that, I'll show you one side here. The other side will be the same. Say whenever you're ready to hit the road, disconnect your Jeep. You have to pull off your safety cable there. Then to disconnect the tow bar, just going to have a pin to pull out, another pin, and that's really all there is to it. You know, you disconnect your wiring in your braking system, which is pretty straightforward. You just unhook it. And then on the same note, whenever you're ready to flat tow, just take your tow bar and your pin, line up the holes, slide it through, and then reinstall this keeper pin here. Take your safety cable, click that into position. So really simple and don't take you a whole lot of time. So you're not going to be fiddling around with this, wasting a bunch of time whenever you're trying to go enjoy yourself. So this base plate is going to work with most Roadmaster tow bars, but if you have a different type of tow bar or a different brand, chances are pretty good it'll work with it too. And that's because here at eTrailer we do offer adapters that allow you to pair that different tow bar with this base plate. So it gives you a couple options there, and if that's your case, you can find those adapters right here at eTrailer. So I will say, compared to some of the other base plates available for the Wrangler, this one is probably going to be the most hidden, especially whenever you're not using it. So if that's what you're looking for, I feel like this would definitely be the way to go. However, if you don't mind something being a little more noticeable, the etrailer.com base plate is really similar. It comes out in the same location as our Roadmaster one here, but it kind of looks a little more utilitarian, if that makes sense. It's a little more bulky and a little more noticeable. I kind of like the look of it, especially on these Jeeps. And if you're someone that just wants to be able to see everything, have it come out real far to where it's really easy to get to, the Kurt would be a great pick for that if that's what you're looking to do. So one thing I do want to talk about is the use of a high-low adapter. Some of you may need it, some of you may not, but I thought it was definitely worth mentioning. And what a high-low adapter is this piece right here. And what this is going to do is plug into your motorhome's hitch, either drop or raise where your tow bar is going to attach. More times than not, you need one in a drop position. And if you use that, what it's going to do is make sure that your tow bar is riding nice and level. In our case, we don't absolutely need it. We're right on the edge. And the way you would find that out is you want the measurement from the hole here in your base plate to be within 3 inches of the hitch pin hole on your motorhome side. So you would take that measurement and compare it to this one and go from there. And that's how you'd figure out what size high-low adapter you would need. In our case, on our base plate side, it's 16 inches. Now keep in mind, especially with Jeeps, that measurement can vary, especially for those of you that may have larger tires or lift kit, something like that. But I just figured I'd give that number as a reference. And if it does turn out that you do need a high-low adapter, you can find many of these sizes right here at eTrailer. So at the end of the day, probably my favorite base plate available for our Wrangler Unlimited. And I say it because it's super simple and it looks good. So what more could you really ask for? Now, as far as the installation goes, this is probably one of the easier ones to get installed. I've installed many different base plates for the Wrangler, and this one went together pretty smooth, so that's always a bonus as well. So as long as you take your time, really shouldn't give you a whole lot of issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead, pull us into the shop, and put it on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Jeep, and we're going to need to remove our front bumper here. And so we're going to first start by pulling out 2 push pin fasteners along this edge. So we're going to have one here and one on the other side. And the way to get these out, you can take a flathead screwdriver and pry underneath the head of it. And then you can work out the base as well. That's going to remove the whole fastener. So I'll do the same thing for this one over here. So now underneath of our bumper, we're going to have some more push pin style fasteners. And these are going to work the same as the other ones. They just look a little bit different, but in this case, I find it a little bit easier to get these out using a trim panel tool like this, but a flathead screwdriver will do the trick as well. But what we're going to do is just get all of these pulled out here along this front edge. And then on each corner of our skid plate here, we're going to have an 8mm screw. So go ahead and pull those out. Then our skid plate should drop down. Kind of work it out and set it off to the side. So now we can take off this metal plate, and on each side, we're going to have a single fastener. Use a 16mm to get this removed. And I do want to mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of our vehicle, we're going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the exact same way. Once you get that out, you should be able to kind of push up on it, and we can drop it down and set it to the side. So to actually remove our bumper now, on each side, we're going to have 4 nuts holding it on. So 2 here, and then 2 just like it on the other side of our frame. And so we're going to take a 18mm socket and get all of those removed. Now with an extra set of hands, we can remove our bumper. So you're just going to have to kind of work it back and forth pull it towards you. It's usually a little tight, and that's normal. Don't go too far just yet. Over here on the passenger side, we're going to have an electrical connector. So we'll disconnect that. You just push down on that center tab, pull the two apart. Then we can set our bumper off to the side somewhere safe. With our bumper out of the way, now on each side of our frame rail, we're going to have these reinforcement brackets. We need to remove those. So what we're going to do is remove the 16mm bolt. Now what we can do is enlarge our attachment points here on our frame rail. So we're going to have this hole here as well as this one down here, and we're going to open these up to the size indicated in our instructions. And when you're drilling this, you want to make sure to try to go straight and level as you can, and we're going to go through both sides of the frame rail. So we'll puncture this wall here, continue on, and drill through the other side. Now that we have our holes enlarged, what I'm going to do, since we do have some bare metal now, is just take a paint stick and put a layer of paint over that exposed metal to help keep it protected from rust or anything like that. You can also use spray paint. That'll work just as fine too. So I'll go ahead and give all the bare metal a coating. Now what we can do is get our base plate in position. Now these are side specific, so check your instructions for the diagram. One quick way to tell is that your safety chain hooks here should be facing towards the center of our Jeep. So we're just going to slide these in like so. And this hole here is going to line up with that factory weld nut. And I'm just going to take that factory hardware and just get that in hand tight. That way the base plate will kind of support itself while we work on the rest of the bolts. And I'm putting that same factory nut in on this side as well. Now as far as the rest of the hardware goes, we're going to start with this top hole here. You can see that there's a gap in between the frame rail and our base plate. And so we're going to be using these spacers to fill that void. So you're going to hold this, take one of your long bolts with a flat washer on it. And I like to kind of just try to line everything up. We will push that about halfway through. On the other side here, again, we're going to take another spacer. Line that up. And push it through. Once we have the bolt protruding through, you're going to want to take some red Loctite and put some on the threads. And all of the hardware that we're going to use to secure our base plate is going to receive that red Loctite, and you can get that here at eTrailer. Then we're going to put on a flat washer, a split lock washer, and a hex nut. And we're just going to get this started hand tight for now. For this attachment point down here, we're not going to have to worry about those spacers. All we're going to need to do is take, again, one of our long bolts and a flat washer. We'll push that all the way through to the other side where we can get the rest of our hardware on it. Here's where it comes out. Again, don't forget your red Loctite. We're going to put on our flat washer, our split lock washer, and another hex nut. And we're also going to be using that opening there as an attachment point. What you're going to do is take the shorter bolt, a split lock washer will go on it, then a flat washer, and your Loctite. Then we're going to grab the handle nut here, and this is going to thread into that handle nut. So right under here, there's an opening where you can take that handle nut and line it up. Then you're just going to take the bolt and get it started. Now that our base plate is supporting itself, you want to come back and remove these factory bolts and put on the red Loctite on here as well. Now that we have all this hardware in place and hand tight, we can come back with a wrench and a socket and snug everything down. Now that we have everything snug, you need to come back with a torque wrench and tighten all the hardware down to the amount specified in our instructions. Underneath here we have the remaining portion of our handle nut, and what I'm going to do is just take a pair of snips and cut that end off clean. So once you get the other side of your base plate on, this goes on the exact same way as the one we just did. But once that is complete, now would be a great time to work on any other of your flat toe components, such as a braking system or diode wiring and so on. And I say it because with the bumper out of the way, we're just going to have a little bit more room to work and get everything installed. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. If you already have that done or you're not going to be reinstalling those items, you would simply put your bumper back into position, and then you have to trim out a little bit of that plastic rock guard, and you'll be good to go. So now that we have our other flat toe components installed, we can go ahead and put our bumper back into position and re-secure it the opposite way that we removed it. And don't forget to reconnect any electrical connectors that you may have disconnected while removing the bumper. Now at this point we can start to do some trimming. So this is our metal guard here that went underneath our plastic skid plate. And we're going to have to cut these corners off and reinstall this small portion here because our skid plate is going to bolt to that. So we're going to refer to the instructions for the diagram and cut this out. This is pretty thick metal actually. I'm just going to use a grinder like this, but you could probably get away with a Dremel tool or a Sawzall even to get this material removed. Once we have this piece removed, we can repeat the same process over on the other side of our plate here. Now what we can do is grab the tabs that we cut off, and these are going to get reinstalled like so. And what we're going to do is take the included bolt, and what I found it easier to just push it through our base plate tube there and line it up that way as opposed to trying to come in through there. So I'll push that through, and I'm just using a magnet to kind of help me out a little bit. Might take you a couple tries, but we'll get it in there. So once you get it started, I find it a lot easier just to kind of come in here through this opening and turn it with your fingers. Try to hold it in the same position that it was originally in. And then I'll just come back with a 17mm open-end box wrench here and snug it down. At this point, we can trim out our plastic rack guard here. There's a diagram and instructions, and I went ahead and drew those out. And since this is plastic, I'm going to use a Dremel tool. You could probably use a sharp pair of snips or something like that as well. So I go ahead and get these cut out. We'll put it in position. Make sure that it fits nicely. If you have to trim out a few more areas, no big deal. You can pull it back off, trim them out. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and get these cut out. now we can go ahead and reinstall our panel the opposite way that we removed it. I do want to mention I did have to trim out just a little bit more here on each side. That way it would just slide over our safety chain openings easily. But so we'll just hold this up and get all of our fasteners reinstalled. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster baseplate kit with removable arms on our 2019 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.